6 p.m. Zuidland. There is no better place to be. This place is popping. But that's just because I'm sitting over here casting StarCraft, Nate. Let's
Hell
get it
yeah.
on. In the top left side, we're looking at the main base of the Ukrainian veteran. It is Cass, who's in space. Amazing.
I love it. I gotta send in my mountain background. That's the real head twister. In the bottom right, we have the blue Terran player. Let's just washed tag. He's uThermal.
Want to let everyone know while this is going on, there is also another match of this group taking place over at the B stream. So if you're not interested in TVT but you love PvP, take a look at the second stream where Strange and Goblin are going to duke it out with one another. Obviously in this group, Cass is 0-1, uThermal is 1-0. Yes, wow, that was almost timed, guys, but that was actually just random that I mentioned it. But there is the beautiful overview of this group at this point. You guys can see uThermal off to a decent start after defeating Strange on the first playday, and Cass lost against Denver, but it was a 1-2, so he did pick up a map.
Nice. And as far as Terran versus Terran in general goes, see these gas first openers, super popular, still super standard. Reaper, usually people getting into that factory early, and then there's so many different ways that you can play TVT. Cyclone Raven into tank. Marine Viking is still very popular, but you'll see stuff like Reaper Hellion with Marauder drops. You'll see all sorts of shenanigans with there's just those early straight up tank plays, but you don't see quite as much the focus on the super greedy play. A couple SCVs just getting taken off gas by both players so they can get the expansions up because they're thinking a little bit more about just having that map control with the Reaper Hellion. Still getting the command center, not delaying it too much, and focusing a little bit less on the starport. So we'll keep our eyes on which player wants to be aggressive first in this situation. Those are going to be the big things to keep tabs on, because especially with no ramp into the natural, you'll see lots of siege tank plays and whatnot in TVT. And if that doesn't end up being what decides it, then buckle up, get your popcorn, and we'll have a nice long match. Because that's about the way it goes, Kev. People keeping their eyes out for the big drops. TVT, very, very stressful matchup. If you can't tell, I'm already stressed just talking about it.
Yeah, like, are you okay, Nate? It's been going on for a little while.
I don't know if I am, Kev. I don't know if I am. TVT is a hard matchup. TVT is a hard matchup. I don't pretend to enjoy playing this one more than the others. That's all I'm gonna say.
I mean, in the old days, I was able to just walk over to your room and be like, Nate, I'm here. I can give you a hug if you need one. It's gonna be a bit more difficult now as you're rather far away. I just want to make sure you're okay, mate.
Yeah. You know, just all we need to do is if we get the technology, I just need to scan. We take a scan of you hugging, and then I can 3D print your arms and put them around me anyway, just like old times, Kev. One day the technology will be there, and you can hug me from the other side of the planet.
I love it. You know what I also love about Cass is that often when players get older and they're still good, but they're not on top of the scene anymore, because for the people who started following StarCraft 2 over the last few years, there was a time that Cass was legitimately one of the very best Europeans. Without a doubt, the top 4, top 5 player in Europe. He never had too many amazing tournament runs, but that's also because he was forced to duke it out with all the top Koreans, and there were a lot of them back then in the early days. But Cass was really good. And now we're 11 years in the future. He's still good, but he's not necessarily the very, very creme de la creme or the tip of the mountain in Europe. But he's still not afraid to just play these normal, nice, macro-oriented games. He's not just becoming a cheese who's trying to like win a game here and there and pick up $10. He's still playing legit, straight-up StarCraft, and he's trying to improve across the board. And I honestly find that kind of fascinating.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's stuck with it really well. I guess it kind of helps, right? When you have, in terms of the different styles, Cass was kind of classically known for some of those more slower or unorthodox plays way back in the day. He was Cass and Bratok, at least from the Terran perspective, as somebody who was learning the game way back when in 2011, 2012. Those are the guys that you were watching to learn how to play those tank Viking wars, but that's all TVT was back then, right? For a large part, that's pretty much what Terran was as far as the identity goes. So they've got such a breadth of experience that I feel like even if you feel like you can't move quite as fast as you used to, you know, so many tricks, you have such a mastery developed that you can maybe put less inputs in, but make them a little more impactful than you used to.
Cass has done a good job in avoiding these units of uThermal, but I do hope that he has enough units at home. It seems like he does. We've got a tank, we've got a Raven, and the 2 Reapers of Cass casually sneaking into the natural of uThermal, finding 2 SCVs, make the 3 SCVs. We might get another one. Not bad, Nate. Pretty decent value out of these Reapers. Can we get 5? No way. Yes, no, yes, no.
Oh, so close. So close. Yeah, no, I like that, right? There's no way that those Reapers were going to deal with the Cyclones. If they caught them, they would have died instantly, but he gets around them, gets a couple of SCVs, and both of these builds are very similar. That 3rd command center a bit later for Cass, but he's on the same time, he's not going to be crazy far behind with that setup because he didn't make the same investment into the same amount of units. I'm trying to see where the exact differences are here, but it's still quite similar. As we got the extra barracks starting up for Cass, so he's not going to be going for any mech shenanigans. Yeah, so it's just a faster 3rd command center for uThermal, and the barracks end up being a bit later for him for whatever he's going to add. Yeah, he's going to move the starport towards the reactor, and this is all super standard. I think you get towards like that 3-4 Viking count. You try to move out, get a position, deny the 3rd of your opponent if you can. But that's why I think uThermal did the build like this. He wanted to get that 3rd very quickly.
Yeah, it's not that standard anymore, though, because uThermal is building 2 additional factories. Has not started Stim, and will probably never start Stim. So the Dutchman is actually going to make it happen here in the first game. While Cass has not really seen a whole lot, Nate. Like, the only thing he did see is that both refineries were up and running in the natural. But I don't think that's very telling. It wouldn't hurt for Cass to get some sort of vision or presence in the main base of uThermal, so at least he knows that he's going up against the mech Terran.
Yeah, well, that does make that. I mean, that makes a lot more sense because I was looking at these two, and I'm kind of floundering. Like, what exactly is like what did he cut to make that happen? And now I realized it was the earlier gases that he took, the 2nd gas, especially in the natural, a little bit faster for getting those factories earlier. So, I mean, you know me, I like my mech memes. Like to see it. I think the 3rd base on this map that both players are going for is super wide open, so you have to cover a lot of ground when you want to play defensively here, and it makes me question whether uThermal has something up his sleeve if he wants to try and do a timing push out rather than drawing it out into like a sort of stalemate-esque game. But at the end of the day, if you get enough of those siege tanks up and you're able to control the skies, it really does just, it's going to be so important to have that air control. Between the Vikings being able to land on tanks and they demolish them, but also those Ravens for the disable, you know, uThermal needs to be really cautious about the way that he's going to approach this. And I like that he's sharking around the map with those Cyclones and Reapers. He doesn't want Cass to be able to just walk up to his base and siege.
And he locked on the only Cyclone that Cass had as well, and was able to pick that one off. So that makes it a little bit more doable for uThermal Cyclones to just roam around and maybe get a lock on a few more units and start picking them off one by one. Cass is setting up his very first drop. We know that uThermal has left plenty behind in the corner of his main. This is what I mentioned, when you lose your own Cyclone, uThermal doesn't quite get the kill on that tank, but does a lot of damage. I have a hard time believing that this medevac is going to be very successful, Nate, but hey, sometimes we do get surprised.
Yeah, there might be a tiny bit at the very bottom, but no, those Vikings with that range, absolutely not a problem for them.
That
it's
Raven
very important for uThermal to keep his eyes on if Cass decides to switch into more air units, though. If he adds extra starports, that's something that's really important to keep in mind, because if he gets like the Servos upgrade Vikings against tanks and mech units, they absolutely obliterate them. Like TVT just gets weird because of that. Ever since that Viking change happened, because they also blow up buildings really fast. Like, you really cannot afford to lose air control at any point in Terran versus Terran these days.
I'm gonna ask you, if we would ask Cass right now, are you playing against Bio or Mech? Do you think he knows the answer?
I don't think he's dropped the scan inside that main base at all, right? He may not be certain.
I really don't think he is very certain. He did unload a couple of his Marines with Stim, so he does finally pick off these Cyclones, but he's still just making Marines. Obviously, Marines are good, especially if you can somehow outmaneuver the mech army, but I've seen games like this time and time again. If uThermal can max out, he is really good in making sure that he doesn't have any weaknesses. Now Cass throws down a scan on the army of uThermal, and now he obviously knows. He's like, whoa, that's a lot of tanks, mate, and Hellions. I guess we are going to mech it up. He immediately drops 2 starports at home, but that's only after he scanned the army. I think this is the first time he realized.
I think that's really, really important to point out, actually, Kev, because I was talking about what you're worried about in this situation, but Cass didn't even know that that's what he was supposed to be doing, because he added a second factory. But the number of siege tanks, so you're not going to build more tanks than the mech players.
No.
Your focus can't be that, oh, I'm going to have 2 factories and overwhelm him with tanks when he has 5 factories. It's just never going to happen. But what you can do is you have to get that big air dominance. And it's such a tricky balance because when you're playing mech, you don't really need the medevacs. They're not an important factor. But as the bio player, you want to keep your medevacs, but that cuts into your starport time. But if you lose that air fight, all the medevacs die anyway. And uThermal with a huge move out. He's just coming up. He's got so many tanks, disables every single tank that Koss has. So his tanks are all able to siege up very close. The Hellbats get right on top of the army, and uThermal just bowls this force over. Easily shoves Koss's army aside. When we're talking about air control, it's because of things like those Ravens, man. 3 Ravens with full energy. That's so many interference matrices, easily able to clean that up. And I don't know how you dislodge this army. Now he's just going to try to force some sort of base trade situation if he can with all these Marines on the other side of the map.
I mean, the Marines are going to make it into the main base. A couple of Hellions is not enough. 1 tank just popped. 2nd tank just popped. Really unfortunate timing on those tanks popping. And I don't think that uThermal wants to send those SCVs up because they're all going to die, man. The timing of this drop was absolutely perfect. And Marines are a little bit better than tanks in base trading because they kill buildings a lot quicker, that's for sure. I mean, I still don't like this position, of course, for Cass, but at least we have a little bit of hope.
Yeah, there's a couple of important things with when you're in these situations. You really want to try to lift all your production up and get it out of there as soon as possible. I think it's something that people miss a lot. Every single building that you leave behind here is just, it just hurts because you're going to have to remake all of that. If you lose your barracks and you're not paying attention, then you can't rebuild the factories that were destroyed, and all of a sudden you get sent back to the Stone Age as far as your tech goes. So tries to drop on those tanks. I think too many Hellions, too many SCVs. Yeah. The lack of Marauders, I think, hurts a lot because you were talking about, Kev, he wasn't really aware that it was mech he was going against at the very start, so he doesn't quite have that punch against the tanks if he gets super close.
Yeah, Kaz has now lost most of his Marines on the other side of the map, but there is still one thing that's kind of working out for him, and that is that uThermal does not know that Kaz is mining from the top side base. He hasn't seen it, and he may just think that, all right, Kaz is going to try to get an army. Kaz is going to stim down the ramp. I don't know how this is ever going to work, Kaz, and I highly doubt that he even believes that this is ever going to work. Too many tanks, too many Vikings, and the Macking Terran uThermal will get the W in game 1 after he marched to the other side of the map with a very powerful force and dropped a couple of interference matrices.
Yeah, it's just really well executed. You know, the number of tanks there was still pretty good on the part of Koss. There were like 7 tanks he sieged on top of that ramp. And normally, it'd be suicide to just try and move up a ramp with 7 siege tanks there. But when you have twice as many Vikings as your opponent, the Ravens, they just get to just chill. They just follow right behind and say, okay, boop, 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 click on all of these guys. And then you've got 10 seconds to move your whole army up, lodge it right on their base. And even if this base trade goes super crazy and those buildings are all in the air, uThermal can protect his army, right? Because he had so many Vikings and he had so many siege tanks on the ground. There was no way he could actually ever engage uThermal's army. But yeah, and then once you get to that point where the Vikings have to land, I really like that uThermal got transformation service early. That's not something that you're going to typically see Terran players focus on, but that just lets those Vikings go up and down like pretty much instantly. It cuts it to like a 1-second transform time. So when you need that extra damage, it's so helpful because they truck those siege tanks too.
Game 2 is going to be played on the Romanticide. Don't think we're going to see mech again. I think we're just going to go back into some good old Marine tank on the side of uThermal 2 there. I don't hate to see it. I feel like the Dutchman has always had a special place in his heart for some of these mech builds. Pulled it off well, but I really think that Cass was just too blind. And I genuinely don't think he knew. Until he threw down that scan where he's like, whoa, why you got so many Hellions, bruv? It's like, oh no, you're meching? Like, I haven't seen a Marine in forever. And obviously that's not supposed to happen on this level. Like 9-10 minutes into a game, you're supposed to know what your opponent is doing. Maybe Cass did know, but it really didn't feel like he knew. Especially the moment he saw it, he's like, oh my god, I'm dropping starports, I'm gonna move back home instead. And then it already felt too late, because then this man said, all right, now it's my time to move to the other side of the map. As it seems like we have a tiny interface bug in game 2, so we may have to rehost this one. If you guys wonder what's the interface bug, sometimes when we use add-ons like the Game Hard mod or the Neo mod with the battle report, players get a different interface, and some of them look standard to the default one or whatever they may be used to, but some of them are very bright blue and pink, and that can be a bit distracting.
Yeah, sometimes things just bug out. There's all sorts of random things that can cause things to break, but it's okay. We're just going to rehost the lobby and we'll get back into that game in a moment. But I think as you said, Kev, you kind of hit all the points there. It's a lot about the awareness of what the opponent is up to. And when you assume that your opponent is doing the same thing as you, the openers were still very similar. Ravens on both sides. They had the couple Cyclones that were out on the map a little bit earlier. The Reapers got thrown away by Koss, but there was really nothing there to indicate to him that, it was going to be anything other than what he was expecting. However, that was, as we all saw, not the case. So I think we'll probably see uThermal go back to more of a normal standard setup in game number 2. I agree with you. Maybe Cass is the one that ends up switching something that he wants to do. But yeah, the TVT, if it ends up being that bio versus bio, though, those drops become a bit more impactful. Because if you're playing mech, you kind of expect your opponent to always go for those big counterattacks when you move out, because that's one of your biggest weaknesses. You have no way of quickly going back home to try and defend and deal with all of that. So it's just one of those really difficult situations where you have to balance everything perfectly, and that's what makes TVT such a hard matchup, because there's really not a lot of room for error. If he's able to snipe 1 or 2 of those Ravens before the fight, even with his lower Viking count, I think that the game looks completely different. Even if he still loses, the way that fight ends up happening and the pressure to go for that base trade is maybe a little bit different too.
While we were waiting for the guys to rehost this game, apparently one result that we didn't touch upon yet from the second stream or games that were not played on the main stream today is that Skillis got his first W, 2-1 over Stefano. That makes me kind of happy for that young Russian. I actually believe that didn't he win on the first playday too? Who did he beat? Braddock or something? Yes, Skillis beat Braddock on the first playday, now beat Stefano on the second playday. So the young Protosses in Group B are off to an excellent start. MaxPax 2-0, Skillis 2-0. That's pretty fun if you're a Protoss fan. We have rehosted, but I see sad smileys, Nate, so I think we still have an issue.
I'm looking, I'm terrified. We're just making sure everything's okay, and we might redo it one more time. Sometimes starting a game of StarCraft can be like trying to get that lawnmower going after you let the gasoline all dry up over the winter, and you have to pull it a few times to try and get it going again. And that's okay. We're just gonna give it another pull. We're just gonna give another pull on the wire, Kev, and get this one going if we can.
I had it once where I had a super buggy interface. I had to play against Indy, the Polish Protoss, and it were my first games in a couple days, and I hop in and I'm like, StarCraft looks so weird. Like, I don't think it's supposed to look like this. And then I realized that certain parts of my interface were green. And I was like, there's no way that these things have been green in the past. But I was like, oh, well, I was like, whatever, I'll just play, like it's not the most important thing in the world for me. I was like, let's just see if we can control our Phoenix as well. That's slightly more important. And I played my games. I was like, that's really awkward. Then I started playing a ladder game again and went back to normal. I'm like, oh my god, everything looks different. So I can definitely imagine that Cass wants to make sure he's just playing with his regular interface, because some of the bright colors can be very distracting.
Yeah, no, totally feel that. There's some funny interface bugs that can happen if you play custom games and co-op stuff too. If you ever play something and that you play one of these weird games with modified units, and then you look at any of the menus, you try to change your skins, and then it says that your Zerg is infested Terran and stuff like that. It's all sorts of things that can bug out as we're out here attempting to stall as long as we possibly can. We do have the lobby open again on Romanticide. We have a different admin hosting this one to make sure that the bug doesn't happen again, hopefully. So thank you for bearing with us, ladies and gentlemen. We are getting into this game as soon as we can. But when we talk about interface bugs as Protoss, I thought you were talking about being able to lose games for a second there. I was worried, Kev. That's the real fear when you run into the bugs in the game.
That happens with every interface, Nate. Don't you worry. I wish there was an interface that would make me win a little bit more. I would definitely go to that one, but I've tried them all. Even the Warcraft 3 ones. I bought Warcraft 3 Remastered pretty much only for the interfaces it would give me in StarCraft 2, because the game itself I've played for roughly 45 minutes, and I don't want to be the grumpy old man, Nate, but the old one was better. Anyway, I think we're good to go. Let's go ahead and hop into game 2 of these two lovely European Terran players, as we are taking a look at the main base of the man in the bottom right side of Romanticide. He's up 1-0, representing Team Liquid. It is uThermal.
And his opponent In the northwest position as the red Terran player with the clan tag star, he is Kas.
Good old Misha Hader. And will he scout this game, Nate? That's the big question.
The big question. You know, when I think about Kas, it takes me back to those old days of watching 4GG go 3 command center with no scout, cross spawn on Whirlwind, and getting one base 7 roach rushed by like Nurchio. And Kas was one of those guys as well. He'll just be like, you know what? I know that this is still back in the day when people just do all sorts of crazy stuff, but I'm just gonna play crazy greedy and not look at anything that's happening. And it sometimes leads to very funny games. Sort of like, you know, we things got a bit weird at the end of that last one, although for completely different reasons. And sometimes it ends up turning into a huge advantage, right? If your opponent doesn't want to try to play aggressive on that particular map, being really greedy in that way can still give you a huge buffer against them, against future mistakes, right? If you have that early economic advantage or whatever kind of thing you want to spring for. But Romanticide is also another map where we talk about choke points and gaps that tanks can shoot across, but other units can't gap close very well, right? With the mineral line wall by where that third base sometimes goes, the cliff, and this vision blocker by the natural. That low ground is still a pretty good spot for setting up some siege plays in Terran versus Terran. And of course, there's always that threat that you're going to be worried about somebody sieging on that cliff by the main base. So you have to be careful about where you're putting your production on this map, because anybody who wants to be aggressive on TVT, this map has quite a few different avenues that you can take, which might be a little bit trickier to deal with than on some other maps.
You can see that uThermal is dropping a relatively quick command center, but he's dropping it in his main. Cas scouted with the SCV, but all he saw were the 2 depots and the barracks making a wall off. So Cas is like, I want to make sure that you're not building a second barracks somewhere around my base and surprise me with a couple of Reapers. That's not going to happen, but I gotta say, this is a wild opening by uThermal, right? Because he's building all the command centers, Nate. What the hell is this?
No, this is insanely greedy. I mean, this is like what I was just saying about Cas, except uThermal is expecting it of him. So he's thinking, okay, Cas, you're going to do some, you know, vanilla ice cream, middle of the road, not bad, but nothing really inspiring sort of build. And I'm just going to try to take advantage of that by being mega greedy. These Reapers somehow managed to have this dance. Okay, I was going to say, if Cas had gotten both Reapers away there, I would have been mind blown. But just a little bit of a dance. But he's just basically looking at this like, okay, Cas is going to play really standard and not do anything weird. So if I can just cut this little corner, get this third command center, delay my starport a little bit, then maybe I'm slightly behind on the first or second Raven, but I'm going to be filthy rich. And this map leads to long games, especially in TVT, so I don't mind that at all.
You know, it's kind of sad that if you're Cas right now, you probably think like, this actually worked out. I mean, maybe he went for a slightly earlier command center than I did, but I'm the one building it on location because I knew I was safe. I knew nothing weird was happening on my side of the map, so I didn't feel the urge to build it on the high ground. And Cas probably thinks that economically, he's in a mighty fine spot. We know that's not the case because uThermal is about to have a full orbital command head or lead over his opponent. And that is something that Cas really does need to pick up on. Otherwise, he's going to feel quite far behind without even being aware of it.
Yeah, the one thing that looks like it has the potential to get awkward is the fact that he did this medevac opening and is going for the tank. If it was one of those pick up the tank and bring everything across as soon as possible builds, then I think there's actually a really huge potential to do some damage because uThermal's tech has been delayed by the greed of the build that he's gone for in this situation. However, it looks like it's just going to be a 2 cyclone drop. Still really annoying, and he can actually still do a lot of damage with this, assuming the medevac stays alive, because the Marines don't have a ton that they can do here. The Cyclones are limited by their lock-ons mostly. If the Cyclones get low on health, then this build loses its power pretty quickly, though, because there's no regen on those bad boys.
Cas is going to try his luck one more time, unload the Cyclones in the natural, gets a double lock-on, but I mean, lock on the SCVs that go into the refinery. The lock-on will break now. His own medevac receives a lock-on from the Cyclone of uThermal. Cas will be able to keep it alive. Maybe Cas can put 2 and 2 together at this point, but it's like, it's kind of weird that I didn't see any Ravens. It's kind of weird I didn't see multiple Cyclones or Cyclone tank. Why don't you have any units? Oh, that's a good lock-on by uThermal. I love the scan too. Gets the kill, drops the other turret. I mean, those Cyclones are so low on HP. I don't know if uThermal is going to be able to kill them. but he still survived all of this, Nate, without really taking any damage. Kills the medevac. I think the Dutchman is in a marvelous spot.
Yeah, no, that was perfectly done. The Cyclone Harass basically did nothing. He got the medevac there, right? So that's a huge pickup. And the Cyclones are just so weird in TVT because outside of this very specific phase before Vikings and Marines are in play, and uThermal's going mech again here. Is that what you're wowing at? Yeah,
absolutely.
I was gonna say just real quickly, the Cyclones aren't very useful, really, outside of trying to catch early units. Once there's a lot of units on the map, Cyclones fall off super fast. So it almost feels bad repairing them because you know that they're unlikely to pay for that in the future.
But you also just don't want to send 3 HP Cyclones forward and give your opponent the satisfaction of getting easy kills.
Yeah, no, it's. I mean, if you ask me, Kevin, I think Kosh just should have blown them up on his own. Then.
Exactly, just kill them on your side.
Be terrified of random Cyclones for the rest of the game.
Exactly, Cass is like, uThermal was like, no, I cannot do a Hellbit drop because the Cyclones are on patrol somewhere. Just take them. I think you're
300 IQ. He's got his brain folds are folding into themselves recursively now. He can't be stopped anymore.
I agree with you, Nate. That's the smartest thing he could have possibly done. Instead, he repaired them like an absolute pleb, but we'll see if he can get any value out of them. He is moving out a lot earlier. uThermal does already have quite a few tanks, 2 tanks there. Maybe the Raven could have... Yeah, if you drop double interference matrix there, Nate. And then again, there are a couple of Vikings and Ravens on the side of uThermal too. I'm afraid that Cass once more cannot do a whole lot about it. And going up against mech can already be kind of difficult, especially on maps where they can just turtle a bit, and I guess Romanticide is absolutely one of them. Going up against mech if you're economically behind, it just seems like a nightmare scenario to me.
It is. Oh, uThermal was crazy greedy this game. There's no mixing words about it. If he was playing against, like if we were looking at a different matchup with someone who maybe would have done that tank opener with a Marine drop, like then you're getting into a situation where Koss could actually have forced him to pull all of those workers off the natural and lose a lot of the economy that he tried to gain with this build. But I mean, Koss did exactly what uThermal expected him to do, which was just a very standard middle of the road build, which is not bad in any way. He just abused it by being stupidly greedy early on. And now the auto turrets are going to go up to try and block this while the rest of the tanks come up. uThermal still has that air advantage, Kev. He's got so many Vikings.
He's got every advantage, Nate, because he also kept both of his Ravens alive for so damn long, so he was able to spam some auto turrets. He did a great job in gunning down the Raven of Cass immediately, while keeping his own 2 Ravens safe. Once the Vikings of Cass were done, he brought the Ravens back, dropped some auto turrets, and this really wasn't much of a fight in the end. Like, uThermal doesn't have the army to chase it down, but he's going to be feeling really good about that exchange. We can see it in the unit's lost resource tab as well. Cass losing more resources while being outmined for the last 5 minutes of this game. It's just all bad, Nate. Sometimes StarCraft 2 can be a bit sad because I just want to give Cass a hug at this point. I feel like nothing is going his way in this entire best of 3.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. uThermal definitely came with a game plan here, expecting Cass to just play very standard and very normal StarCraft, but even these Hellions are going to be annoying because he doesn't have the transformation upgrade done yet. And if he had, maybe he could have done some damage to that tank. That was a cute little attempt. But yeah, no, it kind of comes back to what you were saying earlier, is that you're not really supposed to be ever economically behind a mech player. And it's still easier for Koss to just build that 4th base where he's building it. And in this game, very important to note that he actually has more than 1 starport with a reactor going right now. He's building 4 Vikings at a time. I think you still need to get to that 3 reactored starport level at some point, or maybe he just can't afford to run 3 reactored starports. Yeah, he has them. He's just been running into some supply and money issues. So his setup is great for this. He's in a way better position in the last game. But I don't see how you still can't attack him. Your strategy now has to become try to prevent uThermal from expanding all over the map while you also transition into mass air. Because that's gonna be his best chance. He's not engaging these tanks with his bio. It's not gonna work. And with sensor towers and the way that this map's laid out, it's really hard to doom drop people. So I like the Liberator range. I like the Viking production. You got to win big on the air if you want to take out a mech player, I think, in TVT. But uThermal's probably gonna push before Koss is maxed out. So I don't know what's gonna happen.
If uThermal doesn't do anything in the next 60 seconds, then yeah, maybe Kaz is indeed catching up in the Viking count. He's still a couple Vikings behind, but yeah, triple reactor is going to allow you to catch up real quick against the single starport of uThermal. While this is going on, Kaz even dropping a 5th command center on location. But yeah, uThermal knows his timings very well. He's maxed out, then he's going to try to make magic happen. Nate, Viking count 14 against 12, but let's not forget about these 2 Ravens that we still have. An anti-armor missile could really mess things up for Kaz, and even other turrets could be very annoying.
Yeah, the biggest problem here, though, is while you're right that he's catching up in the air count, he still doesn't really have a ground army answer for this. So he has to decisively win the air battle to do anything there, and he's not able to do that. These Hellbats are still able to kind of soak up most of the damage. He has a lot of tanks on the ground still, though, and I'm not sure if landing the Vikings would be enough in this situation. He's going to try to split some of them, but I don't know how he defends his base.
No, that's the biggest problem. Kaz did win the Viking battle, but he lost decisively on the ground. This game, he didn't invest in the 2-2 upgrades. I don't think that really would have made the difference. He's just been too far behind economically in this game. Not the craziest TVTs we've ever seen, but a mech masterclass coming out of uThermal. He just won both games with Vikings, tanks, and a couple Ravens, and he made it look easy.
Yeah. At the end of the day, siege tanks and Vikings are 2 most important units in Terran versus Terran. Even if both players are going bio, they decide so many of these fights and the way that these things go. A couple of these Liberators being allowed to siege up in a bit of an awkward spot. Some of these tanks might... I don't think it would be the worst thing to just unsiege all of them if you're going to leave them here to fight. Just let them fight unsieged personally. Move them away from where the Liberators are. The Vikings will eventually clean it up, but... while Koss wasn't making the early investments into bio and into his stuff, uThermal had already had 3 command centers and was building the Vikings and the siege tanks. So Koss had to play catch up, and the best thing that he had going for him were these Liberators, but they just came out too late. And uThermal takes the 2-0 really well